The Star and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear Pet Store. Give your pet the best with Little Bear. Online, littlebearonline.com. A family-owned business in Montreal for 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their amazing staff. Top brands, great prices, and real care for your pets. Shop online or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. Classic pub grub and an unbeatable vibe. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. There's Marco D'Amico. I'm Sean Starr. Thanks so much for being with us. The Montreal Canadiens, well documented on this show, on this channel. We talk about the prospects on the regular. We talk about asset management. We talk about possible trades, what the Montreal Canadiens might be able to give up. But here in this moment, let's talk about timeline for a second as it relates to two high-profile Montreal Canadian prospects that this fan base is itching to get a closer eye on. One plays overseas in the Continental Hockey League, and the other might be wrapping up his collegiate season with the Michigan Wolverines. Certainly on track for a Hobey Baker. That's Michael Hage. We could talk about Alexander Zarowski, and we will here too, doing very interesting things in the Continental Hockey League. But more importantly, sometimes I'm more inclined to think, as we hear and read about what moves will the Montreal Canadiens and their management team make, whether it's leading up to the February 4th roster freeze or the March 6th NHL trade deadline. Sometimes I'm inclined to believe the one move the Montreal Canadiens are going to make is going to be welcoming Michael Hage from the Michigan Wolverines program, a la Lane Hudson. What about that timeline? Is there any more clarity on the likeliness of what Michael Hage is likely to do once Michigan season comes to an end? And obviously, the Frozen Four and what happens in that tournament. But what about the Michael Hage timeline? Any clarity on that?
Well, when it comes to Michael Hage and Michigan in general, like they're doing so well this year that yes, you have the internal like Big Ten or ECAC or Hockey East kind of tournaments where you try to see who the divisional winner is going to be, but they, based on their pairwise rankings, which is the rankings for the NCAA teams, 100% will qualify for the NCAA tournament, leading up to the Frozen Four. So the timeline is as such. Either Michigan gets eliminated in the first two bracket style games in the end of March, I believe, between March 21st and 28th, or if he goes to the Frozen Four, which I believe is in Vegas this year, I have to double check. But the Frozen Four this year is going to be the second weekend of April. So that would leave Michael Hage a couple of games towards the end of the season to be able to suit up for the Canadiens. And then should the Canadiens qualify for the playoffs, well, then that's a different story. So the finals for the Frozen Four on the 11th of April, right? The Canadian season, I believe, finishes on the 16th. I'd have to double check that, but that would give them enough time to squeak them in a couple of games. Plus, the Canadiens will be on the road for their last two games of the season against the Islanders and the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah.
So it works out well that you'd be able to start him and it wouldn't be like super pressure because you're not playing at home But again, that all depends on what happens. Why would Michael Hage jump now, though? And I think that's the bigger question: is like, is he ready? Do we feel he's ready? And obviously, saying this 3 weeks removed from leading the World Junior Championship in scoring, it's a worthwhile conversation because usually with first round picks, 2 years and then you sign, right? Like that's usually the case. Top picks, like top 10, top 5 picks, maybe one and done. But Michael Hage in 2 years, you've seen some significant improvement over his game. And we've kind of talked about this. To stay in Michigan another year, I feel would probably be a waste of opportunity because what he needs to improve on further to be an NHLer, I feel like at worst he can do in the AHL if he's not ready for the NHL. But in the NCAA, I mean, it's good. It's a great environment for him right now. He's doing great under Brandon Naurato, Max Pacioretty at Michigan. Finding the center of the ice, learning the game defensively, using his body more, being encouraged more and more to find the center of the ice and go to the center of the ice. His vision, just the way he sets up his teammates. I don't know that you could really say that Will Horkoff would have the season he would be having this year without Michael Hage. So on that end, he's done great in being able to kind of improve on his strengths. But I think what's really going to help Michael Hage at the NHL level is getting used to that physicality, the speed, the timing. That's going to be the biggest change and how he's going to be able to overcome that kind of adversity. So in terms of getting to his bases, as he continues his development this year, and especially I think it'll be telling in the playoffs, but I just feel like this is the year where he makes the jump. Similarly to what we saw with Jacob Fowler, 2 years, Blaine Hudson, 2 years, Cole Caulfield, 2 years, like just prospects in a similar setting. I feel like, the cream of the cream 1 year, and then everybody else generally two, and then you have the late bloomers that do three, or if not four.
I'm also curious about, if he does make the jump in April, right? And I would I would assume, which is always a dangerous proposition, I would assume
Uh-oh.
that he plays on the wing, right? But what about, like, before we move on to Zarowski for a second, like if he goes and doesn't break camp next fall and goes to Laval and plays his first full pro season, let's say with the
Mhm.
Rocket, I wonder if they're going to try to like really give him a real hard look at playing center,
Of
and
course.
and that's going to be the role for this guy,
Yeah.
because I mean, face-offs. I mean, if we're to talk about like a weak link, right? I mean, everyone keeps talking about
Well, yeah.
face-offs, right? So
Yeah.
they're going to give him the reps, right, to try to see if this guy is going to be the answer to that 2C question if it's not addressed, in season this year.
Yeah. Ask Michael Hage that question.
Yeah. What would his
You'll
answer be?
feel the gravitational pull from the roll of his eyes would be insane. The question that everyone constantly asks him, and
Sure.
with measure, you have to improve that if you want to be an everyday center in the NHL. But what I think I would venture to say is face-off skill is not finite. It's not like to me, it's not like height or weight, or even weight, but it's not like height. Height you can't really do anything about, right?
Yeah.
Like it is what it is. But
Mhm.
face-offs are a skill that can be improved, and he continues to improve in the face-off circle, and he's just going to continue to improve as he gets going. And I always point to guys like Nick Suzuki, Jake Evans, same concept. Weren't guys that were very strong on the face-off circle at first, but always kind of worked their way up at whatever level they were, and then started in another league, wasn't that strong, worked their way up, and so on and so forth, right? So I feel like the same could apply to Michael Hage, where if we're really talking about faceoffs being the impediment here, like, and no disrespect to the player, but like this isn't like a Kirby Doc situation where you're in the 30%, 35, 37%. Michael Hage is somewhere in the 46% right now. So it's not the end of the world, but you want to see him be in the 50s, period, because when the Canadians are going to be competitive, you're going to want top six centers that win more often than not. So that I understand, and there's time for that. And this is why I say there's no rush. The only reason Michael Hage would be playing in Montreal to end the season is because when players sign out of the NCAA, it's after the trade deadline. If you sign an entry-level contract after the trade deadline, you cannot be sent to Laval. You can't go to the AHL. So he has to finish the season in Montreal. The only exception would be to do what Jacob Fowler did last year, which is sign a contract with Laval for the rest of the season and then have his Canadiens entry-level contract start the year after. But with a player like Michael Hage, with the way that he's played in the NCAA, you don't mess around generally with that. You give them the entry-level contract right away. And so that's why I think he's going to finish the season in Montreal, probably finish, play the last, if not the last couple of games this season. If the Canadiens are qualified, they'll probably rest some of their veterans at that point, and they'll bring,
Right.
they'll call up guys to finish off the season, and then we see what happens in the playoffs. But for me, I think it makes total sense. And if the Canadiens are a playoff team, you're going to want him to be around so he gets to know the environment. He gets to know the trainers. He gets to know the equipment managers. He gets to know Martin St. Louis, and he gets to understand the systems so that when he comes into camp next year, he's more than ready to go.
And on that end, right, when this fan base saw Lane Hutson make the transition from being a Terrier to a Montreal Canadien, and you saw the razzle dazzle in those 2 games against the Detroit Red Wings, and the guy never looked back, and the rest is history, as they say. You're reigning rookie of the year. I'm not saying Michael Hage rookie of the year, in his first full season, but what's going to be the difference in challenges for Michael Hage to not pull a Lane Hutson, make the leap from NCAA hockey into the National Hockey League, Marco, and never look back?
It's a good question. I think one of the things sometimes with Michael Hage is he tries to do too much himself. I think we saw it at the World Juniors. The one-on-one ability is ridiculous, but sometimes he'll try to deke out the whole team, and maybe that's not conducive in the NHL. You might get smoked.
Yeah.
You might not get smoked on the first deke,
but they'll figure you out.
The second guy coming is going to rock you. So there's that element. I would say the defensive side of the puck as well. Martin St. Louis, as we've seen, a very detail-driven coach. So he's going to want a guy that's going to take pride in the defensive side of the puck. There is that element. And we've seen his handling of Ivan Demidov. If Ivan Demidov started off real slow with his minutes, 11, 12 minutes a game,
That's
because
true.
they wanted to get that defense going. So what do you think that'll do for Michael Hage? Not that Michael Hage is a bad defensive player. I would even venture to say he's vastly improved in that department over the last year. Where I believe Michael Hage is going to have more of a challenge, I would say, in the NHL is going to be those physical one-on-one board battles. It's going to be what happens when the opponent starts to physically box him out. How is he going to fight through checks? How is he going to win those board battles? How aggressive is he going to be on the forecheck? That's what they want to see. If he's able to add that element to his game, if he's able to really kind of become, and he's going to do that. He's doing that right now in the NCAA by the fact of he has really taken on a lot of mass. He's really kind of grown his body and he's worked out well. As he continues to fill out, this will be less and less of an issue because he does have good size.
Yes.
But it's going to be now the willingness, the drive, the FU attitude that Kent Hughes mentioned on the Arpin Basu and Marc-Antoine Godin podcast earlier this week. Well, you're going to want that FU attitude. You're not going to want that nonchalance that a lot of people sometimes see in Michael Hage's game. You're going to want him engaged, because when Michael Hage is engaged, we saw it at the World Juniors, he's a very difficult player to contain.
Let's talk about pick number 34 overall in the second round from 2025. Alexander Zarowski with Salavat, 41 games, 13 goals. Lots of, Hab fans that maybe aren't into the weeds talk about, when's he coming over? He's going to come over. The Canadiens are going to go over there with a briefcase handcuffed to their wrist, stacked with cash, and they're going to buy him out of his contract. But on a realistic tone, what's the reality for Zarowski timeline before this fan base can see him and enjoy, his skill set in North America?
I think it would be a mistake, given the utilization he's getting right now, to bring him over this fall. This spring.
Right.
I think it would be a mistake because If Ivan
Could they though?
Demidov,
Could they if they wanted to this in the spring of
they
2026?
wanted to, no, they can't do
Okay.
anything about it. I don't care about your conspiracy theories on the internet that the Canadians are paying off KHL teams to get players. They're not.
Okay.
They're not. I can guarantee. I can tell you that the Canadians did nothing to entice Ska
Right.
financially to
Right.
let Demidov go early. It was a PR stunt to let Demidov go early. UFA doesn't care about PR. They care about not going bankrupt. That's the biggest thing for them right now. And that's why a guy like Zarowski is getting generational utilization right now. Like
Yeah.
I don't think people understand. He's getting the kind of ice time that 18-year-olds dream of to
Mhm.
play in the KHL. And I'm not using that against him. I'm going to use that as a proponent to keeping him there for another year. The Canadians could push. UFA said it themselves. We're not going to hold a player back who's ready to make the NHL. But I don't think he's ready to make the NHL. And I think that's 100% okay. He's not in the same league as Ivan Demidov. I see a bunch of very happy, flashy folk saying that, the Canadians should get more respect for drafting. Absolutely. Incredible value pick for Nick Bobroff. In a redraft, Zarowski will probably go in the middle of the first round, if not earlier, if he continues to play the way he has. Great value pick. But there are still holes in his game that the NHL would eat alive.
Right.
And I feel like that's what you have to factor in. The next thing you have to factor in is, oh, well, if he's not ready for the NHL, well, why not the AHL? Well, when you sign an entry level contract, generally your AHL salary is capped at about $90,000. And then you have to pay 50% tax on that or 40% tax on that.
Yeah.
Why would he do that when he could be making more at home with
Mhm.
more ice time and marginally, arguably similar levels of competition? There is no reason. So ideally, when do you see Zharovsky? As a readied, more physically pronounced 20-year-old in April of 2027 as the Canadians gear up for a playoff run. That's the way I see it, because at that point, he'll be more physically ready. He's 6'2", about 176 pounds. That is light.
And 18 years old. Yeah.
And 18, well, yeah, but that's talent more than anything, right? But
Yes, agreed.
he has to fill out. His skating needs to improve. His wherewithal defensively, Martin St. Louis would probably have a field day at first with him. So there are elements to his game that absolutely will work themselves out. I'm not saying that he's a problem prospect. He is an A prospect. But rushing him when you're having trouble figuring out who's going to be where in your lineup right now on lines 2 to 4, I don't think is the right
Mhm.
place for him. To send him to Laval would be a detriment to him, in my honest opinion, because right now in Laval, it's a very difficult kind of scenario where they're balancing having the local veterans in the lineup, right? Like Belzile and Dauphin getting all the top minutes, deservedly, and then kind of having like prospect lines, like, what was it the other day? It was Beck, Roy, and Davidson. So like, where do you fit in all that? I would put him higher, but there's a risk in bringing a player like that to the AHL early as well. So I would prefer to see him continue to get the ridiculous amount of minutes that he's getting, because he's getting on average like 16, 17 minutes a game of late. When Evgeny Kuznetsov, yes, Evgeny Kuznetsov is
Yeah.
healthy, it's a good player to have around him, just like he helped Ivan Demidov last year. He's just recently joined UFA, and he could very much help, as he did in his first couple of games, elevate a player like Zharovsky. So I think he's in a good situation where, because he plays on a team with meager, financial ability, they're not going to be able to bring in high price profile players. So they're going to have to use him like a marquee player. That's a great situation to be in. You look at the rest of the U20 Russians that have been drafted in this league playing right now in the KHL. He's in some nights he has double their ice time,
That's
triple their
wild.
ice time.
Yeah.
And
Very
it's
unique.
insane. Like Ivan Demidov last year had an average of what, 11, 12 minutes a
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
He's at 4, like the last time I checked, he was at 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah.
Why do you want to deviate from that? That's a perfect That's perfect utilization. So for me, a player with his incredible vision, one-on-one ability, his hands, he's got a good one-timer as well. The offensive tools are all there. The only thing is the fruit is not ripe yet, in my opinion. Let him simmer, and I guarantee you, Canadians fans will be very, very happy with what they see in April of 2027 because he would come in and be a plug and play top 9 player for the Canadians, I believe, if they leave him in the KHL again next year, because he would be a weapon right off the bat on the second power play wave. In my
Right.
opinion, I think he is the power play quarterback right now for UFA. He's fantastic. But again, it's just, you really want to make sure that you really kind of push the
Mhm.
details of his game. And that's what Coach Kozlov is doing right now in UFA. And I feel like give him another year, you'll be very happy with the results. And with the head counts that you have to worry about right now, it just doesn't make sense to throw him into that chaos before he's ready, and then you risk losing him in the shuffle.
There's Marco D'Amico with RG Media. Check him out at MN D'Amico on all your favorite socials. Thank you, Marco.
Always a pleasure.